What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hutch Coming in Clutch. I'm your host, Hutch Sim Brown, and today we've got a fantastic show. We are looking at every single headline, piece of news, every game, every reaction, every buy low, sell high, waiver wire pickup, everything you need to know from week 4 of the 2025 NFL season. It was a fun week, lots of action, a couple of unfortunate injuries as well that we need to talk about. So before we get into the show today, please follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchSimB_FF. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you'll be notified every single time a new episode does drop. And sorry, this episode's posting a little later on Tuesday. Usually I try to get out in the morning, first thing on Tuesday, but I wasn't able to get to recording early this morning or late last night. So I had to do a little bit more like midday. So you're listening to this Tuesday afternoon, hopefully. So without further ado, let's get into the show today. We're going to start Thursday Night Football. Seahawks 23, Cardinals 20. The Cardinals had a major comeback in this game. They tied it up very, very late in the fourth quarter within the last 60 seconds. And then the Seahawks put together a nice drive in the last few seconds of the game to kick a game-winning field goal. So really, really tight one here. But let's talk about Trey Benson for a second. He had just 11 more snaps overall than Amari DiMercato. And I think this was because the Cardinals were in a lot of 2-minute drill situations when they were passing the football, especially late in the game when they were trying to make a comeback. And Trey Benson right now simply isn't the 2-minute drill back. It's just that simple. He isn't on the field for those situations. However, I think this is a great opportunity to buy Trey Benson. The Cardinals, they had an unusual amount of 2-minute drills in this game. Not saying they're going to win all their games this year, but it was really a lot how much they had to be in the 2-minute drill. I think Trey Benson looked really good with the football in his hands on his carries and his 4 receptions that he was able to put together. He looked really solid, had some really good juice, showed burst. And I don't think this is going to be consistent that we see 50-50 between Amari DiMercato and Trey Benson. I think in normal game scripts, we're going to see more like 60 to 65% Benson and DiMercato more in the 30-35% range. So buy Trey Benson. Now, Elijah Arroyo, he had a season and career, well, it's his first year, season high 61% route participation, and his 17% target share was also one of his best this year. Really great to see Elijah Arroyo get more involved in this offense. He's someone that you could sneaky look at on waivers this week in deeper leagues. Maybe you're starting 2 tight ends, or maybe it's like a 14, 16-man league with a deeper bench. Elijah Arroyo is someone you can absolutely look at on waivers this week. Now, let's head over to the morning game in Dublin. Minnesota Vikings 21, Pittsburgh Steelers 24. Justin Jefferson, great to see him with a big game, 14 targets, 100+ receiving yards. Jordan Addison really opened up this offense as the clear-cut number wide receiver 2. He earned 8 targets right away, and he created a lot of separation for Jefferson where he could have more one-on-one opportunities, and Wentz was able to get him the football 14 times. Now, moving on, DK Metcalf, he is one that I'm looking to sell high after this game. He had an 80-yard touchdown. Great performance from him, but he still only put together 5 catches, and he still has not hit a game where he's had a 25% target share yet this year. This is what I was talking about on the Tuesday show, where he's just clearly not the wide receiver 1 of this offense. I mean, yes, he's the leader in targets, but he's not a clear-cut wide receiver 1. He's being used as just a kind of a guy, and he's being used a lot in the short to intermediate ranges of the field, as well as some burners downfield, and that's all he's getting. He's not being used as an alpha wide receiver 1. As a result, we're seeing non-alpha wide receiver 1 fantasy production, where you have a few catches. I mean, so far he's had 7, 6, 4, and 5 targets on the season in 4 games. It's just the targets are not there, and as a result, he's dependent on big plays and touchdowns. And this week he got one, but a lot of the weeks he's not going to get that. So sell high DK Metcalf if you can. A lot of people are very excited after this performance. Now, another thing we got to talk about from this game is Kenneth Gainwell. He had a really good performance. Obviously, Jaylen Warren was ruled out pretty late in the morning, just a couple hours before the game kicked off against the Minnesota Vikings. So Kenneth Gainwell was the clear-cut RB1 of this offense with Warren out. He scored 30+ PPR fantasy points, multiple touchdowns, looked great with his opportunities, 6 receptions. And obviously, look, Warren's injury doesn't seem too significant. I think he'll probably be back next week, and then Kenneth Gainwell will be put back to an RB2 like role, and Warren will be the starter again. But if Warren were to miss again or miss multiple games or any more games at any point this season, we know that Kenneth Gainwell is a very serviceable start in fantasy because he's a good receiver out of the backfield, And when he has fresh legs, man, he can make it work. So Gainwell's somebody that if he is available on your waiver wire, you should absolutely pick him up. But he was picked up a lot after Warren was ruled out. So if you're in a sharper league, he's probably at this point on somebody else's team. Now let's move on here to the 1 p.m. Eastern games. Washington Commanders 27, Atlanta Falcons 34. Falcons edge out over the Commanders here. Let's talk about the Falcons offense. It looked really good this week after a devastating loss to the Carolina Panthers where they got shut out 30-0. Michael Penix was 20 for 26, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, played very clean football. And Drake London finally got involved. He's had a shoulder injury entering the year, and it seems like the snaps and the targets have slowly ramped up as well as the route participation. And we saw a breakout week this week. 8 receptions on 10 targets as a 39% target share, 110 yards, and a touchdown. I think Darnell Mooney getting knocked out of this game promoted more London targets, but I think either way, London looked great. He looked phenomenal, and he is back in his starting lineups as a clear-cut wide receiver 1. Love to see this for London. Love to see him healthy, and love to see him and Penix really going good together. And another guy who had a 100-plus receiving yard game, Bijan Robinson, man. Bijan Robinson's current 17-game pace right now, 1,335 rushing yards and 1,148 receiving yards. There are only a couple backs in NFL history that have done 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving. And if I'm not mistaken, if he continues his 17-game pace, which he probably won't, but if he continues his 17-game pace, he'd be the only running back to have 1,000 with this many receiving yards. Like, it's wild, dude. He's having an unbelievable start to the season, and this is even with Tyler Algier pretty involved. He's gotten significant touches in this offense so far this year. Bijan's good at football, man. Love to see it. And Darnell Mooney, he had a hamstring injury. You mentioned this earlier. He left the game, did not come back. It sucks to see because he had a shoulder injury this offseason that limited him in the first couple of games, kept him out. He finally came back, wasn't really involved in the first game, but then this game, he wasn't really super involved either because he left with that injury. Hopefully, it's not too severe. Hopefully, we can get him back on the football field soon because I think when he comes back and is fully healthy, he can be a very relevant piece in this offense. Now, let's move to the Washington Commanders side. This was a 2.5-headed monster here in Washington. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, 7 carries, 2 targets. Chris Rodriguez, 7 carries. And Jerry McNichols, 2 carries and 2 targets. All 3 basically had 20 snaps overall together. It's a disgusting split here in Washington. I hope you listened to me to sell Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt when Austin Ekeler went down because this is looking really bad right now. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, honestly, when you look at him and Chris Rodriguez playing next to each other, he is not separating himself. It's kind of just going to be a split from now on, most likely, unless Corey Krosky-Merritt really turns it on. Now, let's head to the New Orleans Saints game. New Orleans Saints 19, Buffalo Bills 31. This was looking really close for a minute, and then the Bills towards the end just kind of overpowered the Saints. Let's talk about the Saints backfield real quick. Alvin Kamara, he is a very possible trade target right now for a lot of NFL teams that need a potential running back to add, especially contender, given that he's an older running back. The Saints are just terrible. They're a terrible team, terrible offense. They're not going to win games this year. And having a vet like Alvin Kamara on your roster is just a waste of time. We saw Kendrick Miller get very involved in this game. 11 attempts, 65 yards. He scored an 18-yard rushing touchdown. He looked very impressive. You know, I know me as a Kendrick Miller stan, it was just nice to see. And I know as a stan of Kendrick Miller, who's desperately been trying to get him relevant again for years, it's kind of weird hearing it from me. It might be biased hearing it from me, but he looked really good in this game. And he's looked really good overall on the season. He's a priority pickup for me on waivers because if Alvin Kamara were to be traded or if he were to get hurt or something were to happen to him, Kendrick Miller could be a really good running back because he's good as a receiver. He's looking good as a runner. And if Kamara were to be out of the way, this offense could be his. And that would be so exciting for fantasy. Now, Taysom Hill is set to return from IR. This is huge. I think this makes Juwan Johnson a prime sell candidate right now. He's performing as a top 5 tight end right now in fantasy based off of his volume. He's getting sheer opportunity in this offense. Now, Taysom Hill coming back, I know he doesn't play the typical tight end role, but Chris Olave is locked in as the wide receiver 1 of this offense. He's almost the league leader in targets right now. He is up there, and it's a phenomenal start to the season for him in terms of targets. He's the guy. But then when you look at the secondary pieces of this offense with Rashid Shaheed and Juwan Johnson, both are driven by volume play. Rashid Shaheed more of a deep threat, but Juwan Johnson really driven by that volume. Taysom Hill with his ability to pass the football, run the football, and receive the football could seriously impact the volume share in this offense. And Juwan Johnson without volume is not a Juwan Johnson I want on my fantasy team, especially with Taysom Hill taking a lot of red zone opportunity. So as a result, if you could go out and sell Juwan Johnson, for top 6 tight end prices, I'd be more than happy to do that right now. Now let's look at the Bill side of the football here. Khalil Shakir, 5 catches on 5 targets, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Love to see Shakir get involved in this offense. And I think it just shows us. And actually, hold on 1 second before I get into the analysis. Keon Coleman, he did not have a great game. He's had one great game this year. He went 9 for 91 in 3 games since his huge performance in week 1 with about 8 catches. I think it was 100 plus yards. Just since then, he hasn't been good. And I think it goes to show that this Bills receiving core is just incredibly confusing. They'd prefer to run the football to win games, and they don't need the receivers to be heavily involved. They're not forcing a receiver to be involved in this offense. So in great matchups, you can play these guys as potential flexes, but otherwise, and especially in games where we think the Bills are going to dominate, like against the Saints, you probably don't want to be too risky with these players. Khalil Shakir was able to get a long touchdown and save his fantasy day. Otherwise, this was just a mess for this receiving core. And Keon Coleman's someone that I'd be looking to sell because people got really excited after week 1. The excitement has definitely faded because he hasn't been there as much, but I think you could still get a solid price for Keon Coleman, like a flex-worthy player. And I'd see if you can get that, like a more consistent flex-worthy option for you. And then Khalil Shakir might be a good sell as well for the same reasons. Now, let's look at the Cleveland Browns and Detroit Lions game. Detroit Lions are just going to make it simple. The offense is good in Detroit. The offense is very good. I mean, Sam Laporta, Jameson Williams saw 8 targets. His average depth of target was 26.1 yards. Just had a couple missed opportunities. Jared Goff overthrew him, underthrew him on a couple throws. I think we'd be looking at Jameson Williams very differently for fantasy if we just had 1 or 2 of those catches hit. So I'm not too worried about JMO, but the slow start has definitely been a little concerning. I'm still flexing him as a high upside play, but definitely not a player that's must-start territory right now. He's definitely benchable in certain matchups. But let's move on to the Browns offense. Joe Flacco had a hilarious interception, just lobbed it up for the defense. And we saw Dylan Gabriel come into this game, which is really, really concerning for Flacco. I think we could see a switch at quarterback very soon. Flacco hasn't looked great this year. He has not been good for this receiving core for fantasy. And we know the Browns are a rebuild team. We know they're trying to experiment here. Wouldn't be shocked at all if Dylan Gabriel gets to start next week for the Browns. Keep an eye on that. And he's someone that's sneaky for fantasy too, because similar to a Jackson Dart, he's not afraid to run the football. So even if we, get only 100 to 200 passing yards in a game, he could run the ball 8 to 10 times and give you 50 to 60 rushing yards, and that could be good for fantasy. So keep an eye on Dylan Gabriel as a really sneaky asset in fantasy football if you were to start as a QB2. Now, but looking at the rest of this Browns offense, Quinshon Judkins, 21 attempts, 4 receptions. No one else had 3 opportunities in this backfield. Like, this is Quinshon Judkins' backfield right now, and he's a clear-cut start every single week in fantasy due to the volume he's getting, especially as a receiver too, which some people may be shocked by. I'm not, though. He was very good as a receiver in college on film. Didn't get a lot of opportunities because of Travion Henderson dominating that role, but when he got the opportunity, Judkins can make plays as a receiver. It would be interesting to see if Dylan Gabriel, a new rookie, would have come in, how it would affect Quinshon Judkins' receiving role, because, Joe Flacco loves to dump off. Not sure about the rookie, so keep an eye on that for fantasy. Now, Isaiah Bond, he's increased snaps every single week, and then we finally saw some targets, 6 targets, 3 receptions, 58 yards. He's someone that in deeper leagues you got to add on your waiver wire because this receiving core is struggling overall. But Isaiah Bond, somebody they picked up off the streets basically after being an undrafted free agent, the Browns did. Huge to see this involvement early in his career. Now, let's look at the Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans. Titans get blown out 26-0 by the Houston Texans. Woody Marks for the Texans. This is a big one. This is like the waiver wire pickup of the week if he's available. He's been picked up a lot over the last couple of weeks. He's only available in about like 65 to 70% of sleeper leagues, which is still good. But in a lot of the sharper leagues, he's probably picked up. But let's look at the opportunities from week 1 to week 4 in terms of snap share. So week 1, he played 15% of the snaps. Then week 2, 20%. Week 3, 40%. And week 4, 60%. And this is not snaps. This is opportunities in terms of overall touches in the backfield. So again, 15% week 1, 20% week 2, week 3, 40%, week 4, 60%. This has slowly but surely become his backfield. He looked phenomenal this past week against Tennessee Titans. Yes, it was a blowout. Yes, this was a team you could easily beat. But I would love to see him in future weeks and future matchups and see what he does. It seems like he might be the lead back of this team, and that's a huge add in fantasy football right now. And then Chubb, I wouldn't say he's 100% a drop yet, but he's definitely droppable because it seems like Marks has taken over the starting role. Now, looking at the Titans side of the football here, Cam Ward is flashing. Had another throw across his body to Alec Alec Aomanor, sorry, hard to say his name, on I think it was a third down play. He was just running to his right, just chucks it up, stops, plants his feet, chucks it to his left, and great play there. But otherwise, he's just not been able to put it together. He went 10 for 26, 108 yards and a pick in this one. Titans haven't put up more than 20 points on offense in a single game yet. So as a result, you just look at this offense and think, man, I mean, almost none of these guys are startable. The only player that you could start is Tony Pollard. We didn't see much receiving involvement in weeks 1 and 2, but in weeks 3 and 4, we've seen his target share significantly increase, and that gives him a baseline fantasy football of 8 to 10 points. A lot of touchdown opportunities not going to be there, but the volume is there for Tony Pollard right now. But watch out for Tyjae Spears because he's coming back soon too, and that could significantly impact Pollard's volume. Now, let's look at the Carolina Panthers and New England Patriots. Panthers get blown out after blowing out the Atlanta Falcons 30-0. They lose this game 13-42 at the hands of Drake May and the New England Patriots. May threw 17 balls in this one. Really not a lot of passing here for May. But looking at the Patriots offense as a whole, let's talk about their backfield. I mean, I'm starting to get to the point where I strongly dislike Josh McDaniels. I don't want to say hate because hate's a strong word, but I strongly dislike Josh McDaniels in the way that he's using Travion Henderson. This is still a very split backfield. I mean, Henderson dominated in terms of snaps. He was the leader in snaps by a pretty solid margin. But in terms of carries and opportunities, it was a very clear split. It was 7 carries to 6 carries to 9 carries for Henderson, Gibson, and Stevenson. Henderson got the touchdown, which is nice. Gave him a good fantasy day, but not fun right now, man. Henderson is still a player that is not a guaranteed locks and loads start, and I don't understand why, because he's clearly the best back on the team. Now, let's head over to the Carolina Panthers side of this. What the heck happened, man? This was rough. Bryce Young, 18 for 30. I don't know what we're seeing out of Bryce Young. It's really confusing because the back half of last year, he looked like one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He was making plays on a regular basis, making accurate throws, especially to the receiving core that he had. Now he has better receivers, a second year with Dave Canales as head coach, not really new system, same system, new receivers, like better offensive scheme around him, better offensive line around him, and he still can't put up points. Like I don't get it. We saw such a good second half of last year. I don't know if it was just a weird fluke or a weird stretch, but I really hope we see better out of Bryce Young soon. But right now, it's just not looking good. And then Tevin Millen, man. While the Bryce Young and this Bryce Young saga is not working right now, Tevin Millen has a 25+% target share in every game so far this year, besides one. He's looking really good. So let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers, New York Giants. New York Giants pull off a serious upset, 21-18 here against the Los Angeles Chargers. But let's focus on the Giants side first. Jackson Dart had a really solid game. 10 attempts, 54 yards. Half of them were designed runs. He looked really good running the football. I mean, he put his body on the line. He's trying to get himself killed. He got to learn to slide. But, really fun to watch him play football. And looking at what he was doing as a passer, he was okay. I mean, 13 for 20, not bad. But this team had no game film on him, the Chargers. They had no game film on him. I would love to see what the New Orleans Saints do against him with a game of film now on him. I would love to see what they're able to do, especially now with Malik Neighbors gone. It eliminates that top target for you. But yeah, this is going to be a really interesting saga with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbu, who's a workhorse back, 25 carries, involved as a receiver. These two seem to be a culture change for this offense. Now, it would have been great to have Malik Neighbors because then you could have really made a trinity, but Neighbors unfortunately went down with an ACL tear. He's going to be out for the entirety of this season. Man, prayers up for him, man, and his recovery process. This is a brutal injury to a really good player on a potentially, lifting offense with Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbu now in town. But yeah, man, just best of Malik Neighbors in his recovery, but you can drop him in your fantasy leagues, obviously. And looking at the other option of this offense, Darius Slayton stepped up early with 5 targets. We saw Alana Robinson get involved, but watch out for Theo Johnson, too. Theo Johnson, tight end at Penn State, got injured last year in his rookie year after flashing a little bit, but he's showed some solid things in his second year here, and he could get really involved in this offense as a big, dependable target for a young developing quarterback in Jackson Dart. Now, looking at the Chargers side, we got a lot to talk about here, too. Amari Hampton, big game. Looked absolutely phenomenal. He had one run that was just absolutely disgusting. I mean, gets stopped behind the line of scrimmage by a defender, throws him off, goes to the outside, hits a DB, and just drags him like 15 yards downfield. Like, the DB is just pushing Hampton backwards, and Hampton just pushes straight through him. Another defender gets on top. Hampton's still moving. He turned like a 2-yard run into like an 18-yard play. I mean, he was dragging defenders downfield. And this is the kind of physicality you see with Amari Hampton. Look, I still don't see the agility. I still have some concerns about Martin Hampton in this game. However, in this Jim Harbaugh bully ball system, it could work for fantasy. And we're seeing receiving usage here for Martin Hampton, which is really good baseline for him. So yeah, I'm Martin Hampton. I mean, I was a little concerned about him heading into, this time without Najee Harris. I was a little concerned that he might be a tad overpriced. And I still have those levels of concerns. This was the Giants. Their defense has not been playing that good this year. But man, really, really good stuff from Martin Hampton in this one. Now, Aranda Gadsden is someone you got paid attention to in the Chargers offense. After a 28% route participation in in week 3, where he had 5 catches, he had a 50% route participation in week 4. Didn't have a lot of targets, only 2 catches. So disappointing there on that side, but he's involved in routes, which is really good to see. Hopefully he just earns some targets over the next couple of weeks and become a fantasy relevant option. But I just don't see the ceiling here because you have Ladd McConkey, you have Keenan Allen, you have Quentin Johnson dominating the targets. Now, speaking of this receiving core, let's talk about Quentin Johnson. Like, I'm 100% buying high. Like, I'm all in, man. I'm all in. I'm willing to pay like top 15, top 20 wide receiver prices. And I bet there are plenty of people that are willing to trade him away for that right now because his name is Quentin Johnston. And we had a really struggle some 2 years. And honestly, though, like, I don't mean to like toot my own horn here, but I was talking about Quentin Johnson as a sleeper this offseason because the year 2 was not that bad. He had 711 yards and 8 touchdowns, and he was actually relevant to this Chargers offense. He had some drops, he had some bad plays, but he statistically was a lot better than his first year. And now we come into this year where we still have a lot of ambiguity in this receiving core outside of Ladd McConkey and I guess Keenan Allen now. But there's still opportunity here for Johnson. And guess what? He's coming out and showing why he was a first round pick. And he's dominating right now. And he looks like one of the better receivers in football right now. And I'm 100% in. I'm buying him all the way. Now, Ladd McConkey, I'd be buying as well. There's no way he goes lower than this. I mean, there's the value so low right now. People are so panicked. He's way too talented a player to be continued playing this badly. I think they're going to figure it out with him. Get him involved in this offense. Get him involved in the red zone more, and get him a sustainable target share. The value is just too low for a talent like this. Ladd McConkey is a buy. Now looking at the Philadelphia Eagles and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 31 to Tampa Bay's 25. Jalen Hurts had 0 second half passing yards. 0. As an Eagles fan, I'm mad, bro. I mean, we got the win, which is great, but we were dominating that first half, and it was because we were throwing the ball to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and things were happening with those two, and we were running the ball well. Dallas Goedert was getting involved. Jalen Hurts looked sharp. And the second half, we just forgot how to play football on offense. Like, we forgot everything we'd ever learned. I just don't understand what happened. It was really frustrating. But AJ Smith and Devontae Smith, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith limited again for fantasy. I mean, they're becoming benchable at this point. Like, Smith has already been on my bench for a little bit if I have him in my leagues. And then AJ Brown, it's getting to the point where if you're not playing a good matchup, and if you're playing a matchup where you're expecting a low-scoring game or the Eagles are going to dominate, like, I'm not afraid to bench AJ Brown at this point if you have good options behind him. Like, Quentin Johnson or AJ Brown, like, Quentin Johnson is easily my choice. At Keenan Allen or AJ Brown, Keenan Allen is easily my choice. Like, we're getting to the point where I'm willing to start guys who we thought were wide receiver 2s or flex plays over AJ Brown. Like, it's just kind of at that point. And then Goedert. Goddard's looking really good, man. 7 targets in week 1, got injured, and then very involved again in this game in his second game back from injury. He's someone that is a really good PPR, half PPR option at the tight end position. He's getting consistent receptions. We saw 2 touchdowns for him as well. They created this little new play, which is really interesting. This little shovel pass to the tight end deep in the red zone. And obviously it's not a brand new play. Like, everybody can do that. But the Eagles used it twice in this game, and it would be interesting to see how they use it rest of season instead of like a tush push or something like that, because they've gotten creative outside the tush push. We saw 3 different plays where it could have been a tush push, could have been an easy touchdown situation, and the Eagles just went in a different direction. It was nice to see that. Now let's head to the Tampa Bay side of this. Chris Godwin was involved right away, tied for the team leading targets with 10. Not crazy, a lot of receptions on them, but this is first game back from injury. I'm buying Chris Godwin all the way. He's somebody you got to go out and trade for. 10 targets at first game back. We're only going to see more involvement, only going to see more opportunity from here. Not threatened but for Emeka Egbuka, though. Now let's look at the Indianapolis Colts, Los Angeles Rams, 27-20. Rams pull out the win. Matthew Stafford, 2+ touchdowns in 3 straight games. San Fran, Baltimore, Jacksonville, bye, and New Orleans is the schedule for the next 5 weeks. Love it. He's a great waiver wire ad right now if you need a quarterback play. If you're missing a quarterback due to Joe Burrow injury or you've been streaming the last few weeks, Matthew Stafford someone you can definitely look at. He's got a consistent baseline of passing completions and touchdowns, and the matchups over the next few weeks, there's some really good ones on the list, like Baltimore and New Orleans and Jacksonville especially. So keep get some Matthew Stafford off waivers this week. Kyron Williams, one we need to talk about too. He's running back rush share by week. Let's see. Week 1, 94.7%. Very heavy. Week 2, 77.3%. Still heavy, but a little less. Week 3, 71.4%. Week 4, 59.1%. Hey guys, wake up. Kyron Williams is losing his backfield. And now I'm not going to say he's going to lose the lead job in this backfield, but he's losing the workhorse role. And I've been talking about this for weeks now. Blake Corum has gotten more involved. This is clearly a 1-2 punch. And Sean McVay clearly went from Kyron being our workhorse guy forever to just a couple weeks ago saying we would love to have a split between Corum and Williams in a 60-30 kind of role. And we're seeing that at a high level right now. 59.1%. That's basically where Sean McVay was at. And could it get worse than this because Blake Corum continues to outperform Kyron Williams on every carry he gets? Yeah, it absolutely could. But we'll have to see because Kyron Williams has the name value, has the contract to his name that Blake Corum doesn't have. So I expect Kyron Williams to still be the lead, but right now with a 59% rush share, barely any targets or receiving work, he's a completely touchdown dependent play just to make him relevant in fantasy football. And I know plenty of rest of season rankings still have him as, a top 15 running back conversation, clearly inside the top 20. I'd be happy to sell him for those prices right now because if Blake Corum continues to outplay Williams, we could see Williams quickly lose his backfield. Now, Danny Dimes, he was a little messy in this one. 2 interceptions, first interceptions of the season. If you could sell him for studly high quarterback prices, I'd be willing to do that. Just because we saw some mess in this one. If we're continue to see that through the season at some points, it's going to really ding up his price a little bit because people are already a little skeptical of the Daniel Jones breakout. We saw 2 interceptions today. People are seeming to ignore that. If we see more of that in future weeks, people are going to really start to catch on. If you can sell Daniel Jones for stud quarterback prices, I'd try to do that. It's not necessarily I'm panicking over Daniel Jones. It's just that we've opened up a door of risk here with Daniel Jones now with 2 picks in this one. He looked a little messy. And now, big play here. Alec Pierce sidelined. Adonai Mitchell got very involved. Had 80 plus yards on his couple catches. But I would say he's a strong waiver wire pickup. But unfortunately, he fumbled on the goal line. He was celebrating, held the ball out, and dropped it before he got to the goal line and ended up being a touchback. Dude, hold on the freaking football. You're a second-year player who had a really bad rookie season, and you're doing that kind of crap right now? I don't know how to help you, man. Adonai Mitchell, there was already a couple of character concerns coming into the year, coming into his NFL career, and now we're seeing stuff like this. This is brutal, man. I hope he has the opportunity to bounce back, but similar to how Jonathan Taylor did. Remember that where he fumbled at the end zone last year, then had a huge game the next week. I hope Donnie Mitchell can have that kind of opportunity, but not looking good about this. Not feeling good about that one. Now let's head to the Jacksonville Jaguars, San Francisco 49ers, 26-20 was the final score here. Travis Hunter, 55% of offensive snaps. That's about where he's been so far this year. 3 for 42, had an insane catch over the middle. Really nice to see that big play on third down. But overall, Hunter, still a confusing fantasy asset that I don't want to start until we see more receiving options here. Now, Brock Purdy, he's someone you want to pick up off waivers as a potential quarterback streamer. 586 yards and 4 touchdowns through 2 games. He's also thrown 4 interceptions, which has limited him a tad in fantasy. It just drops your points a little bit. But he's looked really good for fantasy football. And George Kittle coming back soon. Ricky Pearsall, hopefully he's healthy. We'll talk about that in a second. And then Juwan Jennings, he can come back very soon. Brandon Ayuk, hopefully at some point this season could come back. We got weapons here for Brock Purdy and Chris McCaffrey as well as the receiving game looks great. We got weapons here for Purdy. So I'm feeling good about Purdy as a potential QB1 kind of streamer or a QB2 as well. And then looking at Ricky Pearsall, he had a knee injury. We have Thursday Night Football for the 49ers this week, which is a short week. Sucks to see that. I would not be surprised if Ricky Pearsall misses this game. And as a result, you should find a backup option for him in your flex spot or wide receiver 2 spot if you have Ricky Pearsall on your roster. If he plays, I would just watch to see what the reports are. Is it a limited snap count? Is it something that is risky? Overall, I'm probably going to treat him as a wide receiver 3 play that you can play if you need to play him, but I'm not forcing him to my lineup. Now let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens Kansas City Chiefs game. Baltimore Ravens 20, Kansas City Chiefs 37. This was an absolute beatdown by the Chiefs in this one. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson and this Ravens team. So Lamar Jackson, hamstring injury. They were down 2.5 score or base 3 scores, a 3 possession game. And it was about like in the third quarter when Lamar Jackson got taken out. So it was definitely a situation where if he was healthy, he could have gotten back in and tried to lead the Ravens to a comeback, but he did not come back in. So I think this is a situation where we could miss a couple games, but the early reports are showing that we're probably not going IR here. We're probably just going to miss a couple games and maybe not any games at all. So that's really good to see. So just in case you have Lamar Jackson on your roster, find a backup option, a Matthew Stafford, a Tua Tagovailoa, a Brock Purdy, or another quarterback with a good matchup. Find somebody off waivers this week just in case Lamar were to miss some time, so you have a backup option. Now, looking at Derrick Henry, we need to talk about him. Ravens career low, 39% of the snaps. Justice Hill really blew up in this game, had a crazy couple of runs. I would not be blowing up my fab on Justice Hill. We've seen the Justice Hill experience when the Ravens are down. He gets a lot of receiving work. He gets the opportunities. And as a result, we see him have good fantasy football performances, but this is not going to be consistent. Looking at Derrick Henry, though, we need to talk about him because a lot of people are panicking about him right now. I'm going to be buying low on Derrick Henry. It depends on obviously what you can get. I wouldn't spend top tier running back prices for him, but if you can get high RB2 level prices for him, which is probably what you can get at this point, given that Henry's played so poorly for fantasy purposes, I'd go out and buy. He looks great with a football in his hands. He consistently make people miss. He consistently driving through defenders. He looks like Derrick Henry. The problem is that Derrick Henry is best when the team is in the lead, or at least very competitive, and you have the opportunity to run the football. Derrick Henry's not a third down back. He's not a passing downs back. That's why you see Justice Hill consistently coming out on passing downs. And the Ravens were in a situation this week where all they could do was passing downs. And that's why you saw Justice Hill on the field a lot. So Derrick Henry's a player where you need to be leading the game to have him have a monstrous performance. And the Ravens are 1-3. And the one win they had was against the best run defense in football in the Cleveland Browns. Derrick Henry's been set up for a lot of trouble so far this year. Do I think the Ravens are going to continue to lose this many games? No. I think they will win more games and probably be a playoff team this year. Despite the defensive injuries, despite the offense playing at an inconsistent level right now, I think they're going to be better. John Harbaugh, this team, they're going to figure it out. This Ravens team is way too talented to not figure this out. So Derrick Henry, I'm buying in the sense of I think this Ravens teams get better. I think they win more games in the future. And I think we see a lot more Derrick Henry rushing volume and big performances as a result. So buy Derrick Henry for low prices right now. Now let's head to the Chicago Bears and the Las Vegas Raiders. 25-24 was the final score of this game. Bears barely eking out a win. Ashton Jeanty, a breakout performance, 150 plus yards overall in the day, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he's here. Put him in your fantasy lineups. Do not question it. He's a phenomenal player. He has that it factor. I know someone was questioning that over the last couple of weeks. He has that it factor. So he's good at football. Caleb Williams, man, he keeps getting better and better, man. He statistically, when you look at the advanced metrics, I mean, he's looking phenomenal compared to his previous seasons. The completion percentage is ironically down by 0.2%, but when you look at most other statistics, he's looking really good. The passer rating, the quarterback, the EPA per play, he's looking really good so far this season. He's getting more and more consistent over the year so far. In the beginning, it was a lot of big plays and then some messy ones, but overall, so far in week 4, what we saw was a lot of willing to check down, willing to take the easy option, consistent reads of the field, and consistent good plays. Had a couple wacky throws, like, quarterbacks do that sometimes, right? But he's still developing, still learning. I think he's getting better over the season. He's learning Ben Johnson's offense, and this is going to get better. And he's still producing monstrous numbers for fantasy because of that rushing volume. So Caleb Williams, man, he's looking like a top 6 fantasy option this year, quarterback. And now, Colson Loveland. This is a player I want to trade for. He was out this week with that, I think it was a hamstring injury. Cole Kmet had a solid performance. I think he had 9 targets in that game. Keep an eye on Colson Loveland. He is a huge trade target. We saw 10% of snaps in week 3. Yes, I'm sorry. It was week 3. And we saw 3 targets. And he caught one of them, had a really nice 31-yard reception. But overall in the year, on his limited targets, he's looked really solid. And I think this is a situation where we could see Colson Loveland develop over the season and become a better asset. We saw the Bears trying to get him involved early in week 3. Like I said, 10% snaps, 3 targets. We can continue to see more involvement with Colson Loveland. He's dead cheap right now in fantasy. I go out and buy him. Now, Let's talk about the Las Vegas Raiders side of this. Oh, actually, no, I already did with Ashton Genty. Duh. Let's move on to the next game. Green Bay Packers 40, Dallas Cowboys 40. I stayed up past midnight to see a tie. Really frustrating stuff here. Dak is 73% completion on the year. And in this game, man, did he look good. He's looked really good on the season, but especially in this game against a really tough Packers defense, he showed out. Love to see Dak coming back and having a great season so far this year. He's had a great story as well. Multiple severe losses in his life. Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He seems like an awesome guy who struggled through a lot of challenges and overcome them. Love to see Dak doing well this season, man. Love to see it. George Pickens was the wide receiver 1 this week with 8 catches, 134 yards, 2 major touchdowns. And by wide receiver 1 this week, I mean of the Cowboys, not necessarily a fantasy, but of the Cowboys. And he really showed out. 134 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's great. 28.9% target share. Love to see it. So Pickens seems like a must start now with CeeDee Lamb out of the lineup. And Matthew Golden, 5 for 58, no touchdown. Not the breakout game I had hoped for. Similar stuff to last week where we saw 4 for 53. But man, he just didn't play a lot of snaps. I continuously saw him off the field. Dontavian Wicks was running more routes than him. Romeo Doubs caught 3 touchdowns. Just a weird game overall in this Packers receiving room yet again, like it always is. But Golden, this is someone where you can start in fantasy as a desperate flex. But man, it's just not going to be consistent, seems like. Hopefully we see a breakout game soon, but it's not looking good. This was a huge opportunity for him, and he didn't come up. And then Josh Jacobs, great for fantasy football, but underwhelming efficiency-wise. He scored 2 touchdowns in this game, but he's putting up near career lows in yards after contact per attempt, breakaway runs. He's looking a bit off right now. In this Dallas game, he looked all right. He looked pretty solid. But overall in the season, there's been slight concerns here. I'm not saying sell high for sure, but if you're getting like top 5 running back offers, I wouldn't mind it. The efficiency is not there. We know he's an older back. He's taking a lot of miles on his legs. Just keep an eye on this one, man. Now, looking at Monday Night Football, Dolphins 27, Jets 21. Tyreek Hill is the big headline. Dislocated his knee. Really bad injury, man. I mean, I would not suggest that you go watch the video. It's a little grotesque, but his leg did not look good. Bad injury, man. Prayers up for him and his recovery process. Hopefully, he can come back in the NFL strong when he comes back from that knee injury. But this is going to be a season ender, most likely. We're going to see him gone for the year. And as a result, for fantasy purposes now, Jalen Waddle looks like a huge option in this offense for fantasy purposes. He's probably a must start with how much this Miami offense passes the football. But then Von Achane is going to continue to be a PPR option. But now we got to talk about Darren Waller too. 3 receptions of 4 targets, but 2 touchdowns. Big red zone opportunities here for Waller. Nice routes as well. He looked good. He looked athletic. And now Tyreek Hill out, a huge target share opens up in this offense. And Darren Waller, one of the best pickups off of waivers this week. Now let's look at the Jets side of here. Braylon Allen leg injury quickly ruled out on a kick return. Why you have him on kick returns? That sucks. Hopefully this isn't as serious as it looked, but I'm expecting Braylon Allen to miss some time. Best to him in his recovery process, man. Justin Fields, 20 for 27, 226 and 181 on the ground, along with a rushing touchdown. Elite stuff, man. He has scored nearly 30 fantasy points and 4-point passing touchdowns in both of his 2 fully healthy games. Man, he's looking good. This is one of the off-season calls I had where Justin Fields I had ranked as a top 5 quarterback this year, and man, it's looking good. He's having a great start to the year besides that 1 concussion game, so I'm feeling good about this. Fields looking good. He's a must-start in fantasy every single week. Now, Breece Hall, more targets in every game so far this year. Now Braylon Allen's gone. And he has a stench to his name a little bit. Breece Hall does, just because this Jets team is 0-4. Breece Hall's had a complicated NFL career so far. I look at him as a buy low candidate. He had a really weird start to the season, but the last couple of weeks, he's seen more targets, and now Braylon Allen is out. I think this could be a huge opportunity for him to be the workhorse back of this team. Yes, Isaiah Davis is there, but I don't see Isaiah Davis being, a 40% opportunity kind of back. I think this is going to be Breece Hall's backfield moving forward as long as Braylon Allen's out. So buy low candidate Breece Hall. Now, looking at the Bengals and the Broncos, the last game to wrap this show up, 3-28. Rough one for the Bengals. Jake Browning is looking absolutely terrible. Watch out for a quarterback to be signed to this team. Kirk Cousins, Jameis Winston will be the top 2 candidates. Maybe someone else. We'll see. But they are not going to continue with Jake Browning. There's no way after these 2 games that they're going to continue with him, but we shall see with that. He's completing 64% of his passes right now. He just looks so shaken, so miserable on the field. This offense has no juice whatsoever. Chase Brown, again, looks terrible. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins not involved enough. with 2 full games of Jake Browning, Jamar Chase has gone 10 catches, 73 yards. T. Higgins has gone 4 for 47. This is just not working. Both of them, I mean, Jamar Chase, you kind of have to start. You have no choice, but T. Higgins is on my bench right now. And Cortland Sutton, 18 plus PPR points in 3 or 4 games. All 3 games he scored a touchdown in. He's just being used, man. He's the clear-cut wide receiver 1 in this offense, which is so much ambiguity at the wide receiver 2 position for this team. We saw Veneer get some targets, get involved in this offense, but not much for fantasy purposes. Not fun to see that, but Marvin Mims got involved, though. 6 for 6 on his targets, 69 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Big-time play for him, a 16-yarder. Love to see Marvin Mims get involved. Will it continue? Not sure, but he's someone to keep an eye on waiver wires this week, but I wouldn't spend heavy on him because we saw Troy Franklin do the same thing in week 2, and we saw him completely disappear the next couple weeks. Marvin Mims could absolutely be the same guy. And now, lastly, we got to talk about RJ Harvey. 19 opportunities, 5 targets, looked good, scored his first NFL touchdown. Love to see that for RJ Harvey. Finally got involved. Now, this was a blowout, so I'm not surprised RJ Harvey got involved more later in this game. In a more competitive game, it could have been interesting to see if RJ Harvey still got involved in the same way. Love to see it next week or the next couple of weeks if RJ Harvey remains this kind of involvement, because if he does, fantasy relevance is coming very soon. Unfortunately, you probably can't buy because he had a really good game on Monday Night Football, but just for now, if you have him, just hold because we could see some really good involvement soon. So now, something actually was a suggestion. Shout out to my dad. Something he did suggested to me at the end of the show. I want to quickly recap and go through all the waiver wire suggestions, buy low and sell high trade candidates, because I go through a lot on this episode and sometimes you miss things. So I just want to go through a list, just go through the players and that's it. Not any analysis because I already did that in the show, but just go through a list of the players I talked about today as waiver wire pickups, buy lows, and sell highs. So waiver wire pickups this week: Kenneth Gainwell, Kendre Miller, Woody Marks. Those are like my top 3 that I really like. These are the 3 you really want to go after this week. Kendre Miller, Woody Marks being at the top. And then I also like Isaiah Bond. I like Marvin Mims, Romeo Doubs with 3 touchdowns. And then a quarterback, Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford if you need some streaming help. Then looking at trading, buy low, Chris Godwin. Really love this one. Derrick Henry, love that one. Colson Loveland. And then this is a buy high situation, but we're buying high on Quentin Johnson. He's legit. Now looking at the sell options, Keon Coleman. Now, it depends on what you can get, obviously, because he had that big week 1, but I'm not sure you could sell him for much anymore. But just sell this Bills receiving room in general. It's so confusing. Daniel Jones, after 2 interceptions, open the door for some confusion here for Daniel Jones. Sell high if you can get stud quarterback prices. Isaiah Pacheco. I don't think I mentioned this during the show, but Isaiah Pacheco is a big sell high. Scored a touchdown, but he still looks lost on the field. Sell high for him. DK Metcalf, I mentioned him. He had the big catch this week, but otherwise still the same DK Metcalf that we've seen earlier than the year. DK Metcalf's a sell. And then with Taysom Hill potentially coming back off IR, Juwan Johnson is someone I'm looking to sell, as well as potentially Rashid Shaheed, but not many people are paying up for Rashid Shaheed. People will pay up for Juwan Johnson. But that's going to be all for Hutch coming in clutch today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I greatly, greatly appreciate you so much. It means a lot for y'all to listen to the show. Please follow me on Twitter. I'm at HutchinsonB_FF. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so you'll be notified every single time a new episode does drop. And make sure to come back on Thursday. So we have my coming in clutch Fudge Players of the Week, answering start-sit questions, bringing on a guest for the over-under segment, and talk about all the injury updates. There's a bunch of stuff to help you prepare for week 5 of the 2025 NFL season. We'll see you all on Thursday.